still remember the exact moment it hit me, 8 months into dating, and I couldn't answer the most basic question: what's my girlfriend's name? Sounds insane, I know. It sounds careless, lazy, even cruel, but the truth is more complicated. The night we met, I was drunk, too drunk to remember details. I saved her number in my phone as Red Dress Girl because that's what she was wearing when she caught my attention across a crowded bar. That name stuck, and from then on, I avoided situations where I'd have to actually say her name out loud. First, I told myself it didn't matter. We were just two people drawn together in that impulsive, messy way people are when they're both running from something. She made me laugh, she made me feel seen, and when we were together, the world felt lighter. Names I thought were overrated. But as weeks stretched into months, the lie grew heavier. I kept expecting the truth to fall into my lap, a barista asking her name, a friend calling out across the street, a slip of the tongue while scrolling through her texts. Instead, it was as if she had designed her life specifically to never use it. And maybe she had. The first time I noticed something strange was that I thought I was clever, casually suggesting, "Hey, you order, I'll grab a table." I lingered just close enough to overhear her give her name. "Jessica," she said. I breathed out in relief. Finally, I had it. But the next day I had a different, she told them, and the day after that, Sophie. I laughed it off when I confronted her. "Why do you keep changing your name at coffee shops?" She shrugged. "I don't like strangers yelling my real name, makes me feel exposed, so I just make one up." Her explanation was so casual, so logical that I didn't question it, at least not out loud. But it didn't stop there. At restaurants, she never made reservations under her name. When hosts asked, she'd smile, distract them with a question about the menu, and somehow get us seated without anyone writing anything down. At bars, she never pulled out a driver's license, just showed something briefly on her phone, always too quick for me to see. Even her apartment mailbox was labeled resident. Packages arrived with her unit number, no name, her electric bill, paperless, her credit cards, the kind that said valued member. Everywhere I looked, her name had been erased. And here's the part I need to admit, the part that makes me look weak. At first, I didn't try too hard to figure it out. It was easier to ignore, to let her mystery become part of her charm. My friends teased me, "Bro, you're seriously in love with Red Dress Girl?" And I'd laugh it off because admitting the truth that I didn't know her name felt impossible. By the third month, though, the joke wasn't funny anymore. Imagine this: you're at a party, someone introduces themselves, smiles, then turns to your girlfriend. "And you are?" She grins, leans in, and before she can answer, you jump in. "This is my girlfriend." That's it, that's all you say. And the moment passes again. Each time it happened, I told myself, next time I'll ask, next time I'll fix this, but 8 months later, I was still trapped in the same silent panic. The cracks started to show. One night, I invited her over to my place for dinner. We were sitting at the table, candles lit, wine half empty. She was laughing at some dumb story I'd told when my phone buzzed. It was my best friend sending me the RSVP for her wedding. "Please write both your names clearly for the seating chart," the message said. My chest tightened. I glanced at the blank line on the card, then at my girlfriend across the table. She caught my expression immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing," I lied, slipping the card under a napkin, but my hand was trembling. That night when she was asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling for hours. 8 months. 8 months of dinners, movies, road trips, inside jokes, and still, the simplest truth about her was a mystery I couldn't solve. I tried everything. When she mentioned being homeschooled, I asked, "What did your mom call you during lessons?" She just smiled and said, "Sweetheart." When I asked about childhood nicknames, she rattled off vague answers. Too many to count. My cousins were creative. Her college diploma, water damaged, conveniently right across the line where her name should have been. Her yearbooks, photos ripped out, names whited over. At first, I believed her stories, but the more it happened, the less it felt like coincidence. It felt like design. The turning point came at a family dinner. She invited me to meet her parents for the first time. I was nervous, eager to make a good impression. Her mom greeted me with warmth, her dad shook my hand firmly. We sat down to eat, and for a full hour, I waited for one of them to say her name. They never did. "Sweetheart, pass the bread." "Could you get the salad, honey?" "Darling, tell us about your work." Not once did they use her name. I drove home that night with my knuckles white on the steering wheel, my heart pounding. This wasn't just me being forgetful or her being quirky. This was something else, something deliberate. By the 8th month, I was living in two realities. In one, we were perfect, laughing on the couch, binging shows, holding hands at the park. She was smart, funny, kind. I'd never felt so close to anyone. In the other, she was a stranger whose very identity was hidden from me. And the longer it went on, the more I felt like I wasn't her boyfriend, but her accomplice. One night, I sat staring at her sleeping face, her hair spilling over the pillow, her lips parted slightly. I whispered the question into the dark, even though she couldn't hear me. "Who are you?" But the silence gave me no answer. And then came the RSVP card. The line sat blank, taunting me. She slid it across the table one night, her eyes fixed on me. "Go ahead," she said softly. "Write our names." The pen felt like it weighed 100 pounds in my hand. My pulse thudded in my ears. I could see her watching me, that faint smile tugging at her lips, like she was waiting, like this was a test. And I realized with horror that maybe she'd been waiting all along for this exact moment, when I'd finally have to admit the truth. I lowered the pen, my hand shook, sweat beaded at my temples, and then, reckless, desperate, I guessed. I wrote a name. Her eyes scanned the card, the smile disappeared. She stood without a word, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door. I sat there alone, the card between us like a crime scene. And for the first time, I wondered if I was in love or in danger. And I think back on the first weeks after we met, there were little signs I ignored. Maybe because I didn't want to ruin the glow of having someone like her in my life, or maybe because denial was easier than admitting I was living inside a riddle. It started simple. The morning after our third date, I woke up to the smell of bacon sizzling. She was in my kitchen, humming some tune I didn't recognize, wearing one of my shirts like it belonged to her. She glanced over her shoulder. "Scrambled or fried?" Surprised me, I grinned, leaning in the doorway. For a moment, it felt perfect, domestic, like the kind of scene you see in movies where the credits should roll and everything feels safe. But when I leaned down to kiss her cheek, I almost said it, her name. I stopped short, realizing I didn't have one to use. Instead, I whispered, "Thanks, babe." She laughed, not noticing, or maybe noticing too much. For time, I began to realize she had an entire system built around dodging the question of identity. Her friends had never once used her name. At parties, they called her girl, honey, you. It wasn't obvious at first, but after a while, it hit me they were careful, like they knew not to. One night, after a few drinks, I pulled aside. Hey, what do you guys call her like back in college? Gave me this long, unreadable look, then chuckled, "You're so funny." She changed the subject before I could push. The sound of glasses clinking, music thumping, people laughing all blurred around me, but I couldn't shake the chill in my stomach. Were they protecting her or protecting me from something? It was the same with her parents. The second dinner with them, I paid closer attention. The kitchen smelled of garlic and roasted chicken, voices overlapping in warm family rhythm, but every sentence avoided the "Honey, could you set the table?" "Sweetheart, pour your father some wine." "Darling, tell him about your new projects." At once did a name slip through, not when her dad told old stories, not when her mom reminisced about vacations. It was like they'd rehearsed. After dinner, her mom hugged me tight, her perfume powdery and sweet. "We're so glad you're in her life." Her life, not Jessica, not just her. I drove home in silence, hands gripping the wheel, headlights carving through the dark. My brain replayed every word, every careful dodge. But here's the thing, she wasn't cold about it, she wasn't distant. If anything, she was magnetic. She remembered little things about me, how I liked my coffee, how many ached when it rained, how I chewed my lip when I was nervous. She'd send me playlists with songs that fit my mood before I even said a word. She knew me. And that made the gap between us feel even sharper. She gave everything except her name. By the fourth month, I started testing her. We'd be at a restaurant and I'd say, "Hey, can you check the reservation? I think it's under you." She'd smile at the host, skip right over the question and say, "We're looking for a table for two," and somehow she'd get us seated. Another time, I suggested we practice signatures for fun like engaged couples do. She drew looping cursive lines, elaborate enough that they could spell anything. When I teased her to print it clearly, her phone buzzed and she vanished into another room to take the call. It was like trying to hold water in my hands. The I grasped, the more slipped through. Flashbacks kept hitting me, things I'd brushed off before. Like the time I found a prescription bottle in her bathroom with the label scraped clean. Or how her Netflix profile just said me. Or how every credit card she carried had valued member where a name should have been. At the time, I thought quirky, maybe a little paranoid, but looking back, it felt deliberate, surgical, as if her whole life had been scrubbed. The first real confrontation happened on a road trip. We were 3 hours into the drive, the highway stretching endless under a pale winter sky. She was singing along to the radio, her hair whipping in the wind from the cracked window. Out of nowhere, I asked, "What did your teachers call you, in school?" The song ended, silence stretched. Finally, she said, "I was homeschooled. My mom just called me sweetheart." Something about the way she said it, too fast, too smooth, made me clench the wheel. "What about cousins, friends, nicknames?" She reached for the volume knob, cranked the radio, and said, "Too many to count." The conversation ended there, but the air in the car never cleared. A week later, I tried again, softer this time. We were lying on her couch, the glow of a movie flickering across her face. I brushed her hair back and whispered, "What did your grandma call you when you were little?" Her eyes flicked to mine, unreadable, then she smiled faintly. She called me her little star. "Star," I repeated. She kissed me before I could ask more. The taste of her lips distracted me, but the question burned on. Star wasn't a name, it was another evasion. The most disturbing moment came when I found her yearbooks. She was in the shower, I was bored, poking around her bookshelf. At first, I felt guilty, but curiosity clawed harder. The yearbooks were there, high school editions, college too. I flipped them open, searching for her picture. And found nothing. Pages with cutout rectangles, whiteout smears, empty spaces where names should be. My pulse quickened. Finally, one photo remained, her face unmistakable, but the name below had been painted over. I heard the water shut off. I shoved the books back, sat on the couch pretending to scroll my phone. When she came out, towel wrapped around her, I asked casually, "Hey, what happened to your yearbooks? They look damaged." She barely glanced at me. "My ex, he was jealous, destroyed anything with my name on it." She said it so flatly, like it was truth carved in stone, but something about it felt rehearsed. And that's when the cold pit settled in my stomach. I stopped asking directly for a while. I thought if I press too hard, I'll lose her. But the truth is, not asking hurt just as much. Because every family dinner, every brunch with her friends, every time she introduced me as my boyfriend while never letting me say her name back, it all built into this unspoken wall between us. When I couldn't climb, when I was sure she wanted me to. One night late, I confessed to my best friend Ronan over the phone. "Dude, you've been dating for almost a year. You're telling me you don't know her name." My voice cracked. "I've tried. She never says it. No one does." There was a long silence. Then Ronan said, "That's not just weird, man. That's dangerous." Dangerous? The word echoed long after the call ended. The next day, I decided to force the issue. I bought us tickets to a new bar with a strict ID check. She smiled when I handed her the ticket, slipped her phone into her clutch, and we walked up to the bouncer. I handed over my license. She showed him her phone, something I couldn't see. He nodded, waved us in. It took 3 seconds, but it sent my stomach spiraling. Inside, the music pounded, lights strobing across faces. She tugged my hand, pulling me toward the bar. But all I could think was, what did she show him? And why did I feel like I'd just watched her perform magic? That night, I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling. 8 months together, and I didn't even know what to call her. And that's when the question first formed, half whisper, half scream inside me. What if even her friends do know? By the 8th month, the RSVP card wasn't just paper, it was a countdown clock ticking louder with every passing day. Text grew sharper and need full names for sitting chart by Friday. My stomach churned every time I saw the triple exclamation points. I sat at our kitchen table with the card in front of me, pen balanced in my hand. My girlfriend sat across from me, scrolling her phone. The apartment was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock. Finally, she looked up. "Why are you staring at that thing like it's going to bite you?" I forced a laugh, just thinking about how to word it. She leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. "It's just our names, how hard can that be?" The way she said it, smooth, deliberate, made my pulse spike. Over the next few days, I tried new tactics. I left mail from my billing's office on the counter, pretending I hadn't noticed. All of it was addressed to resident. She picked it up without blinking. I offered to book us a tropical getaway. "We'll need passports," I said, keeping my voice light. She lit up at the idea, already planning beaches and excursions, until she frowned. "My passport expired. The renewal backlog is months. Besides, my birth certificate's at my parents' place, and they're still in Europe." The same airtight excuses over and over. It wasn't carelessness, it was choreography. Ronan didn't help my nerves. We grabbed beers after work, the dim bar smelling of grease and hops. And he said, shaking his head, "You realize this isn't normal, right? You've been with her almost a year, you don't know her name, you don't know what's real." I swirled my glass, watching the foam dissolve. She's not dangerous, she's just private. Ronan leaned closer, or she's hiding something you don't want to know. His words lodged in my chest like shrapnel. At home, I started searching quietly. While she showered, I rifled through drawers, checked her medicine cabinet. Everything scraped labels, initials, valued member cards. Even her laptop login was a smiley face emoji. The more I found nothing, the more desperate I felt. It wasn't just about curiosity anymore, it was about survival. Because how do you love someone when you do know who they really are? The tension finally broke one Thursday night. We were eating takeout low in dumplings, the soy sauce sharp in the air. My phone buzzed again, asking for the last time about the seating chart. I set my chopsticks down, palm sweaty. "I need to know your name," I said quietly. She looked up slowly, her expression unreadable, not like this. "Then how?" My voice cracked. "It's been 8 months, I don't even know what to call you." Her eyes glistened, but her voice stayed calm. "It's not about you, it's about my past." I leaned forward, desperate. "Then let me in just once, whisper it right at anything." Her lips parted like she might say it, then she shook her head, grabbed her wine glass, and walked to the window. I watched her silhouette against the city lights, the silence between us heavier than anything we'd faced before. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the RSVP card on the table, the line still blank. I picked up the pen, hand trembling, and thought, what if I just guess? But then a darker question crept in, one I couldn't shake. What if she doesn't even have a real name anymore? The next evening, we went out to a new bar with strict ID checks. The bouncer eyed me, took my license, then he looked at her. She pulled something up on her phone, flashed it for 2 seconds. He nodded, waved us through. I froze at the door. "What did you show him?" She smiled faintly, "Don't worry about it." But I did, all night while music thumped and people laughed around us, her words echoed like a threat. "Don't worry about it." By the weekend, the pressure had twisted into paranoia. I tried again with her friends and we were at her place, wine glasses clinking, the smell of roasted vegetables filling the kitchen. So I said casually, "What did you guys call her back in college, like a nickname?" They exchanged a glance, smooth as silk laughed, "Oh, we had so many, babe, honey trouble." Jumped in, "Remember that spring break?" And just like that, they steered the conversation off the cliff. It felt rehearsed, managed. Like everyone was in on the secret. That night I lay awake beside her, the city hum muffled through the window. She slept soundly, lips parted, chest rising and falling. And I realized with ice crawling through my veins that maybe Ronan was right. Maybe it wasn't just privacy. Maybe it was something darker. Midpoint curiosity hook. What if the woman I love isn't just hiding her name, but hiding from her past? The next morning while she showered, I picked up her phone from the coffee table. I knew her passcode, had seen it enough times. My finger hovered over the screen, one press and I'd have answers. But before I could, the water shut off. The bathroom door creaked. She stepped into the living room, hair damp, towel wrapped around her eyes locked on the phone in my hand. Her face shifted from shock to hurt, then something colder. "Were you going through my phone?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut sharper than a scream. I froze, guilt burning my chest. I was just. But the look on her face said everything. Without another word, she walked past me into the bedroom and closed the door. The silence that followed was unbearable. And for the first time, I wondered if I hadn't just lost her name. But her and the night she caught me with her phone changed everything. She barely spoke for 2 days. She moved around the apartment like a ghost, quiet, efficient, distant. We ate dinner in silence, her eyes always fixed on something just past me, like I was no longer in focus. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. "Please," I begged as she rinsed plates at the sink. "Talk to me, yell at me, anything, just don't shut me out." She shut off the water, turned slowly, and leaned against the counter, her arms folded across her chest, her face unreadable. "You don't get it," she said flatly. "This isn't about you, it never was." And that hurt more than any scream. That weekend, I crashed at Ronan's place. His couch smelled faintly of beer and old pizza, but at least it was a refuge. "She's hiding something huge," I muttered, staring at the ceiling. Ronan exhaled slowly, "And you still love her?" I covered my face with my hands. God help me, yes. By Monday, she texted, "Come over, we need to talk." I almost didn't go, but curiosity gnawed harder than fear. When I walked into her apartment, it was dark except for a single candle burning on the coffee table. She sat on the couch, hands clasped, trembling just enough for me to notice. "Sit," he said. I did, my chest was tight, my palms sweaty. She leaned in, her breath warm against my ear, and then she whispered 3 syllables. Name, foreign, beautiful, nothing like anything I'd expected. For a second, my mind went blank, my pulse thundered in my ears. After 8 months, I finally knew. But before I could say it back, she gripped my hand hard. "You can never repeat it, not out loud, not to anyone, promise me." Her eyes glossy, terrified, bored into mine. I nodded slowly, "I promise." At first, I thought relief would flood me, that knowing her name would fix everything. But instead, the air felt heavier, because now I knew the truth wasn't just a word, it was a door, and behind that door was something she was desperate to keep shut. Over the next few days, tiny cracks appeared. She started telling fragments of a story: a father who'd gone to prison, threats against her family, reporters camped outside their house, a brother who got beaten up at school because of her dad's business partners. Her voice shook as she spoke. "We had to move 3 times in 2 years. When I turned 18, I changed my name. My mom and brother did too. It was the only way to stay safe." I stared at her, the room spinning. "Safe from who?" She shook her head violently. "Don't ask." The impact came 3 nights later. We were at a bar downtown with Ronan and some friends. It was loud, music pulsing, glasses clinking. I tried to act normal, but every time she laughed, every time someone asked her a question, I tensed, terrified she'd slip or someone else would. And then it happened. Man walked in, tall, rough, eyes scanning the room. The second his gaze landed on her, his whole body froze. "Hey," he called, pushing through the crowd. "Hey, you." She went pale, her hand gripped my arm like a vice. "I need to leave," she whispered. "What's going on?" I asked, panicked. But she was already moving, dragging me toward the back door. The man shouted again, loud this time, cutting through the music. Heads turned, people stared. By the time we hit the alley outside, she was shaking. Who was that? I demanded, breathless. Her eyes darted back toward the door, then to me, someone who knows too much. We ran 3 blocks before slowing down, my heart pounded, sweat stung my eyes. She finally stopped, leaned against a lamppost, and whispered, I told you, my past isn't safe. I swallowed hard, chest heaving. Tell me the truth, all of it right now. Her silence was unbearable. Please, I begged. If I'm going to keep loving you, I need to know who I'm protecting. She finally met my eyes, her face pale under the streetlight. You're not protecting me, she said softly. If you stay, you'll be protecting yourself. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside her window made me flinch. Her whispered name replayed in my head like a curse. And one thought kept looping, relentless, impossible to shake. Had I just fallen in love with someone running from danger, or someone who was the danger? The night of the bar incident didn't end in that alley, it got worse. Much worse. We were halfway down 6th Avenue when a car screeched around the corner, headlights blinding, engine roaring. For a split second, I thought it was just some drunk driver, but then the car slowed, just enough to keep pace with us. Her grip on my hand tightened until my knuckles ached. It's him, she whispered. The window rolled down, a man's voice barked something I couldn't hear over the traffic, and then the car swerved, aimed right at us. I shoved her sideways, both of us hitting the pavement hard. My elbow cracked against the sidewalk, she screamed. The car accelerated and sped past, tires screeching, disappearing into the night. People on the corner were staring, frozen, unsure if it was an accident or not. I scrambled up, pulling her with me. She was bleeding from her knee, shaking violently, her breath coming in shallow gasps. We need a hospital, I said. The ER smelled like antiseptic and fear. They whisked her off to x-ray for her leg. A nurse wrapped my elbow, muttering about lucky breaks. I sat in a stiff plastic chair, head pounding, heart refusing to slow down. An hour later, a doctor came out holding a clipboard. Her kneecap isn't fractured, he said, just deep tissue bruising, but he glanced at his notes. She's malnourished, dehydrated, has she been under unusual stress? I blinked at him, yes, definitely. He gave me a pointed look. Her body had been in survival mode for a while, whatever she's dealing with, it's serious. They moved her into curtain bay. I sat at her bedside, holding her cold hand, staring at the faint bruises already forming on her arms. She looked so small under the hospital blanket, not the mysterious girl I'd spent months chasing, just fragile human. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. They won't stop looking for me. Who? I asked, my throat felt tight. Her eyes darted to the curtain, then back at me. My father's people, after he was arrested after the trial, there were debts, promises he couldn't keep. They think I know things, that I have something he left behind. My stomach dropped, do you? She shook her head, tears pooling. I don't even know what they're talking about, but they won't believe me. Before I could respond, the curtain whipped back. A nurse held a clipboard, smiling politely. Just need a signature, he said. But the name line blanked. She froze, so did I. The nurse tapped the paper, insurance policy requires. I'll sign, I interrupted quickly. I scrawled my name and handed it back before the nurse could press further. My girlfriend's shoulders sagged with relief. Later that night, when she was finally cleared to leave, the doctor pulled me aside. His voice was low, serious. She refused to give her name for our records. That's unusual. Look, if she's in some kind of danger, you need to contact law enforcement. I swallowed hard. She won't go to the police. His expression tightened. Then you need to decide if you will. Back at her apartment, silence pressed down on us. She limped to the couch, wincing, and pulled the blanket over her legs. Her eyes glistened in the lamplight. You saw tonight, she whispered. This doesn't stop. They'll keep coming. I paced the room, anger and fear crashing together inside me. Then we fight. We call the cops. Get protection something. Her head snapped up. No cops ever. Why not? I snapped back. You almost died tonight. She bit her lip hard, tears spilling now. Because the police already know who I am. They already know what my family did. If they find me, they won't protect me. They'll hand me back. I froze. Back to who? I whispered. She buried her face in her hands. The people who want me gone. For the first time since we met, I realized something terrifying. Her secrets weren't just about privacy, they were about survival. And if I stayed, if I kept loving her, I wasn't just dating a girl with no name. I was stepping into a war I didn't understand. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the car headlights bearing down. And I kept asking myself one question, looping like a curse. How far would I go to protect someone I didn't fully know? Ronan was the first person I told about the hospital. We sat in his cluttered kitchen, 2 mugs of coffee cooling between us. His brow furrowed deeper with every detail I shared, the car, the near hit, the doctor's warnings, her refusal to give her name. Man, he shook his head, you're in over your head. I laughed bitterly, you think I don't know that? Ronan leaned forward, his voice low. You've got 2 choices, walk away or figure out what the hell she's hiding, because right now you're standing in the middle of her storm and you don't even have an umbrella. 2 nights later, the storm arrived. It was past midnight when a knock rattled her apartment door. She went rigid, eyes wide, her breath catching in her throat. Don't answer, she whispered. The knock came again, louder this time, then a voice. Open up, it's me. My stomach dropped, a woman's voice. She exhaled shakily and shuffled to the door. When it swung open, a tall woman in a trench coat stepped inside, rain dripping from her hair. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to her. You didn't tell me you had company, the woman said. This is him, my girlfriend replied softly, the one I told you about. I stood frozen, heart hammering. Who are you? I demanded. The woman turned to me, her gaze sharp. I'm her sister. The words knocked the air out of me. She had a sister. Wait, what's your name then? I asked stupidly. Both women froze, the silence stretched. Finally, her sister spoke, her tone clipped. You really don't know after all this time? My girlfriend looked away, shame flickering across her face. That's when I snapped. 8 months, I shouted. 8 months and I don't know the name of the woman I love. I've been lied to, dodged, made to feel like I'm crazy, and now people are trying to kill us. Enough, I deserve the truth. Her sister studied me for a long moment, then sighed. She dropped her trench coat over the chair, her voice softening. He's not wrong. If you want him in your life, he needs to know. My girlfriend's hands shook as she sank onto the couch, her eyes glistened. I didn't tell you, she whispered, because once you know, you can't know, and it could ruin everything. I sat across from her, my voice breaking. Then ruin me, just don't keep me in the dark. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it, and slid it across the table. On the screen was a grainy news article. The headline hit me like a punch to the chest. Local businessman sentenced in major racketeering trial. The photo beneath it, her father. The article detailed charges of fraud, intimidation, ties to organized crime, and buried halfway down, a line that made my skin crawl. Family members have been placed under protective orders after threats were made during the trial. Her voice cracked. That's why we changed our names. That's why I don't exist on paper anymore. Owen's words echoed in my head, standing in her storm without an umbrella. I looked at her trembling hands, her sister's watchful eyes, and the weight of it all crushed down. So what's your real name? I asked quietly. She looked at me, tears spilling now, then she whispered it, the same name she'd breathed into my ear that night, only now hearing it in the context of her past, it felt heavier, like a curse and a confession in one. I covered my face with my hands. You should told me. I wanted to, she sobbed, but every time I tried, I saw the headlines in my head. I saw you looking at me differently, not as me, but as his daughter. Her sister placed a hand on her shoulder. She's not him, she never was. The room smelled faintly of rain and candle wax, the silence broken only by her uneven breathing. Finally, I lowered my hands and looked at her. You're right, you're not him, but if we're going to survive this together, I can't keep living in half-truths. She stared at me, broken and terrified. So are you staying? She whispered. And I realized the moral dilemma wasn't about her name anymore. It was about loyalty. To her or to myself. That night as her sister left, she pulled me aside. You're in deep now. If you stay, you need to understand you'll never get a normal life with her. Secrets follow her everywhere. I swallowed hard. I already know. Her sister studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Then God help you both. She stepped into the rain, leaving me alone with the woman I loved and the truth that could destroy us. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake on her couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly in the dark, replaying everything she and her sister had told me, the racketeering case, the threats, the name she'd buried so deep it had almost disappeared. When the sun came up, she was still curled on the other end of the couch, knees tucked to her chest, face tear-streaked even in sleep. She looked fragile, and for the first time, I realized how much of her mystery wasn't about keeping me out, it was about keeping herself alive. The following week, I started therapy again. Miranda, my therapist, didn't even blink when I spilled the whole story, but not knowing her name, about the danger, about the car, the hospital, the sister's warning. You've been living in a constant state of hypervigilance, she said softly. That's not love, that's survival mode, the two often get tangled. Her words hit me hard. I admitted the truth out loud for the first time. I love her, but I don't know if I can survive loving her. Miranda leaned back, pen tapping her notebook. Then you need to decide, are you choosing loyalty or are you choosing your own safety? Because in this situation, you may not get both. Her sister stayed in town for a while, checking in, making sure the shadows circling us weren't getting closer. Sometimes she'd shoot me a look like she was silently asking, are you sure you want this life? And every time I'd look back at my girlfriend, at the way she laughed when she forgot her fear, at the way she traced circles on my hand when she thought I wasn't paying attention, and I'd think, yes, I'm sure. Even if it scared me. One night, weeks later, she finally opened up fully. We sat on the floor of her apartment, her back against the couch, a glass of wine untouched beside her. She told me about the trial in detail, the threats, the cameras, the betrayal of seeing her last name splashed across the news like a scarlet letter. Every time someone says my real name, she whispered, it feels like they're dragging me back into that nightmare. That's why I hid it. That's why I built walls. I reached for her hand, and now. Her eyes met mine, red-rimmed but steady. Now I want to try tearing them down with you slowly if you'll let me. We made rules. Private spaces where her real name could exist. Public spaces where it couldn't. Clear boundaries about what I could ask and what she wasn't ready to share. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And honesty finally felt like oxygen. The scar is still there. Every time I fill out a form with her beside me, I hesitate over the blank line. Every time my phone buzzes late at night, my chest tightens, waiting for bad news. But there are new memories too, small, ordinary ones that somehow feel extraordinary. Watching her dance in the kitchen to music only she could hear. Arguing over which take-up place makes better dumplings. Sitting in therapy together, learning how to breathe again without waiting for the other shoe to drop. 8 months without knowing her name taught me something I'll never forget. Love without truth is fragile, truth without love is brutal, you need both or you'll break. Sometimes when we're alone, I whisper her name just to myself, the real one, the one no one else gets to hear, and every time she looks at me with this mix of fear and gratitude like I'm carrying a piece of her that she can't carry alone. And maybe I am. I dated my girlfriend for 8 months without knowing her name. Now I know, and it's heavier, sharper, more dangerous than I ever imagined. But it's also hers. And for now, that's enough. If you were me, would you stay in a relationship built on secrets if the truth came with danger, or would you walk away to protect yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.